Welcome back to the Winter Speaks podcast. I'm your host, Winter, and as promised earlier, I will be recording and reacting to AOC's Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez's interview on ABC News today or this morning. So let's get into it, shall we?
As you'd seen progressives winning in a lot of these other primaries, it was often dismissed, people saying, oh, this is in very blue parts of the country, in big cities. But this is Michigan. I mean, this is battleground Michigan. And he won. Now he has the biggest test. Can he win in November? What does he have to do to win over those Democrats who opposed him?
Well, I think that this really is a moment, not just in Michigan, but across the country, where the party is unifying. The party is unifying and it is focused on the November elections. We understand that our priority is the working class of this country. And we have to make the case that we're here to make people's lives better. And the Republican Party right now is jacking up prices, making housing impossible to afford. And we are focused on everything from healthcare to your grocery bill and making it more affordable for working people.
Starting off strong, Alexandria is showing unity. And so are Michigan Democrats when it comes to Abdul Sayed. A couple of days after the election, they held a little gathering with all of the candidates that lost and won the primaries, and they held an event together just to kind of unify, and it was something I'd never seen before, actually, in our politics. And so AOC being united, trying to defeat Republicans, and being united on the issues is how we go forward, and how we sell our progressive policies is by being united in these issues, even though some of us have disagreements in how we get there, and so I love her answer.
Okay. Based on a shortage, they're making too much money. I don't like it. When you look at one company where they made 12 times what they made the year before, they're going to give some of that back to the public. And they better cut the retail price, the consumer price.
Well, that was Donald Trump, obviously, talking about oil and gas companies and high gas prices. What did you make of that?
I think that everyday people, everyday Americans, we can see the very large gap between what Donald Trump says and what Donald Trump does. And so Donald Trump may be saying that oil companies are making too much money, but what Donald Trump is doing is starting a reckless war in Iran, having closed-door meetings with oil companies before his election, saying, you give me money, you give me campaign contributions, and I will do whatever you want. And so what we have seen, everything from Supreme Court rulings to Donald Trump's own policy, is what he is doing is jacking up the price, not just at the pump, but at everything that you buy that requires the transportation of goods. And so he can say whatever he'd like from the Oval Office, but I think people are more looking at what he chooses to do.
Now, this is a different topic for a different day, but Trump plays off sometimes as a fake populist. Or not necessarily fake, but a right-wing populist. And like AOC says, don't look at what he's saying, look at his actions. And she's totally correct. And that's the danger about Trump, as he says things that people sometimes want to hear, especially during campaign season. But then you see his actions, and it's just like, what the hell? And so Trump loves the poorly uneducated because they don't know better, and they're easily manipulated. So that's my take on that. Let's keep going.
What he is seeing the people care about, what the people are thinking.
And, to the president's credit, he comes from television, and he's very responsive to public sentiment. And so he knows what he needs to say. But again, none of that is going to lower the cost of your rent or your mortgage. None of that is going to lower the interest rates that you're paying. None of that is going to make your grocery bill more affordable. And what we want to know and what we want to see is action.
Ooh, she called him an actor. That's probably a better term than what I called him, a fake populist. But yeah, he acts like during elections or in general, he'll act like he cares, but really he doesn't. Like, we've caught him on camera and quotes from him saying, like, I don't actually care about affordability, or housing prices, or price at the pump, gas prices. And so, like, he doesn't care at all. Like, he didn't sign the freaking housing bill to make housing more affordable. That was a bipartisan bill in Congress. So, like, actions speak louder than words, as AOC said.
And you absolutely shocked the political world. We saw the pictures of you that night. You were obviously shocked that you had won. You probably don't recall this, but I interviewed you hours later, the next morning, and let's just play just a little bit of that.
Sure.
Judging from the reaction that we all saw of you on television, it seemed to surprise you as well.
It did. You know, I wasn't even checking the election results at all. I wasn't even following the precincts coming in. We had driven straight to our little party at a little billiard spot in the Bronx, and we hopped in, and I just kind of walked into a TV set, and I looked at the screen, and I saw not only the numbers, but what those numbers were, and it was a complete shock.
So, I mean, you sound there a lot like you sound today, but you've changed as well, right? How have you changed since you came in as this insurgent rebel at odds with the Democratic leadership? How have you changed?
You know, I think life has a way of really weathering you and adding to your context and your experience. It humbles you, but it also emboldens you in a lot of ways. And I think it has been the greatest privilege of my life to be able to represent the working people of my congressional district. And I think some of the ways that it's changed me has been to be able to come in with so many aspirations for our country, and then to have the remarkable opportunity to be in the arena and try to make the country a better place, challenges and all. And I love that it's hard. I love that I have to, and I get to, engage with people from all across the country, elected officials from all across the country, to try to actually fulfill our dreams to guarantee health care to every American.
I have never heard anybody, like, say that they like that their job is hard. And she likes that it's challenging, and she gets to challenge her colleagues to guarantee health care to everybody, universal health care, single payer health care, in this country. And that's her main goal, main policy position that she really cares about. And yeah, I find that position really interesting, and how she's changed over time, how she likes the fact that the party is diverse and different beliefs, and that she gets to work inside an environment like that. And so I like that about her.
Push for change in the Democratic Party, but you're also one of the most prominent figures in that party right now. Your endorsement is incredibly valuable. I've noticed that this time around, this election cycle, you have not endorsed candidates that were challenging Democratic incumbents in the House. And somebody took note of this. A fellow progressive wrote recently, the headline in The Hill was, "Today's cautious AOC would not have endorsed the AOC of 2018." Because you were obviously running against an incumbent. I mean, that's probably correct, right? What's your thinking there?
You know, I wasn't endorsed by anybody when I was running.
Your friends.
Yeah, just some friends. So yeah. I wasn't endorsed by I don't think I was endorsed by a single elected official when I was running for office. And, I think when I see so many of these incredible insurgent candidates that are running today, that's part of what makes me so proud of them, is that they do not answer to any master. They are not beholden to any corporate interest or any party boss. And they are completely independent, which allows them to be responsive to their communities and the people that elected them. And I think that in many ways that makes our movement stronger, when you have to rely on your own organizing skills. And I think that it has proven to be quite successful. And I mean, I see so many of these candidates, and they remind me of that moment.
There's a book called The Squad by Ryan Graham, and one of the things, or one of the quotes by AOC is that Justice Democrats and also New York City DSA didn't endorse her until they saw that she was viable. There's also articles out about that specific portion of the book too, so you can also look that up for yourself as well. But I find it interesting where nobody believed in her, and she's built her own army. She has a year-round, every year, including on non-election years, an organizing strategy where she organizes all year, every year, doesn't matter if it's the election year or not, and she continues to win by solid margins, right? She won with over 80% of the vote this primary season. So she continues to organize, and she's built a organizing strategy, and she's a natural organizer, and so she's so good at what she does. And this is where the interview kind of gets interesting, and yeah, it's amazing, honestly. And her being like, well, I was kind of alone back in 2018 as well, and so being held accountable by the people and for the people, is a strength and not a weakness. And she sees that in a lot of candidates. So that doesn't mean she's not watching races or what's happening across the country, even though if she's not endorsing everybody. So it kind of tells people, things are happening behind the scenes, or she's watching behind the scenes and everything happening. And so, I've seen a lot of conversations online about, oh, she's not endorsing a lot. She needs to endorse this person and this person and this person. And it gets kind of tiring. And so it sounds like, AOC wants to make sure, candidates are held accountable to the people as well. And so people might not like that answer, but it's a truthful answer, and it's historically true. Nobody believed in her until the last second. And so, yeah, I am really proud of where where she came from and where she's at now. So props to AOC.
Mamdani, two of whom were challenging sitting members of Congress, powerful members of Congress, Democrats, and you decided to sit that one out. Is that part of wanting to work with your colleagues that are in the House? I mean, what's the...
Yeah, I think we're all in different, politics is also a workplace, and we're all in different positions to that. I endorsed, for example, in New York, on the state level, I endorsed a slate of challengers to incumbents in the Assembly and in the Senate, and I don't work in state government, which gives me a greater freedom to be able to do that and to assess it. And I'm very grateful, that we now have a progressive movement that is in large enough numbers that, it used to be that you could fit 5 people in a closet, and that was the caucus, and now we've grown into quite a successful movement.
To kind of add some context to what AOC is saying, a consultant for progressive campaigns, a guy named Morris Katz, he did an interview with the Majority Report with Sam Cedar, I believe, and he said that AOC and Mamdani were constantly in contact with each other throughout the New York primaries, and that the endorsements between Mamdani, he was able to, like AOC said, he had more of an advantage endorsing against incumbents in congressional races because, of course, he's not in Congress, and then AOC is not in the Assembly, and so she can endorse more progressive socialist candidates in the Assembly and in the New York City City Council. And so she had more of a like ability to get in front of that and to endorse more left-wing candidates. And as opposed to the House, where she has to work with, Hakeem Jeffries and Democratic leadership, she doesn't have like much sway over that, and she wants good working relationships with her colleagues, which requires, you know, being on good terms and not trying to fire them by doing primary challenging. And so, like, that perfect trade off with Mondani and AOC was perfect. So that is my take on that.
Wisconsin coming up next, Francesca Hong, who is the Democratic Socialists of America supported candidate for governor. You haven't endorsed her. Are you going to?
No, I haven't endorsed in that race. My focus has been in winning back the Congress, winning back the House, and positioning ourselves to have the best chance possible to win the Senate. So I've been focused on those legislative races.
What do you make?
What's really interesting is that both Bernie and AOC are both not endorsing in this race. So I find that interesting. I don't know what they think of, you know, her campaign, but it's not just AOC, guys. So yeah, it's also Bernie. Nothing much else to add there.
The Thanksgiving dust up. She says she doesn't, still believe that, but the abolished prisons, abolished police, which is also positions that have been taken by a lot of the progressive candidates who have won. How do you get around that? I mean, those are not positions that are supported by most of America.
I mean, I think that a lot of these races, even right now, they'll have a tendency to be nationalized.
Yeah.
But these races ultimately are local, and all politics are local. My understanding is that Francesca Hong has made clear her present stances to her electorate.
Yeah, she's moved away from a lot of that.
Right, she's moved away from it. And I have a local city councilman that has this saying, woke one was crazy.
Woke one was crazy. Okay, that's actually...
and I think that what's important is that we have to assess what
was it? I mean, did the
candidate is
movement go
saying
too
now.
far with some of those positions? I mean, you briefly supported the idea of defunding the police.
Well, I think that during this time and especially during COVID, there was a huge opening of the Overton window. We were shut down. There was some of the highest unemployment rates that we have seen because of those shutdowns.
Yeah.
And I think that the doors were really open in trying to entertain any and every policy that was going to get us to a better place. And I actually think that the discussions that were had in that time were quite fruitful. I think that when we talk about crime today, it's fundamentally different than the way that we talked about crime in bringing crime down, right? And I think that we all share in the goals of having as low a crime rate as possible. I think that, during lockdown, of course, rhetoric in that time is not rhetoric that we would use today. And I'm grateful that these candidates have the opportunity to present who they are to their electorate and what they're campaigning on in this moment.
I think the only thing I want to add here is that people are allowed to change their mind, and that's what Francesca Hong is doing and has done. And as AOC said, policy changes over time. What we're talking about then versus what we're talking about now is completely different. Whether that's woke or not woke, I think that's kind of irrelevant, but no, 2020 was a hard time, especially police brutality, and everything that happened in 2020. Breonna Taylor, no knock warrants, what's his name, George Floyd, all of that, Black Lives Matter, all that was happening at the time, and people were angry, and rightfully so, and so it makes sense that we were trying to make sense of the times, and when it comes to crime rates, like AOC said, we all want crime rates to be low. In fact, New York City is having its lowest crime rate ever with Zoe and Mondani as mayor. So AOC is completely correct here, and I'm glad that she's defending Francesca Hong and just the ability to change your mind and be like, look, I don't believe in that anymore, or I changed my mind. People are allowed to change their minds, and so that's my take on that. Continuing,
the Democratic Socialists of America are having quite a moment. But you know how Republicans are responding. Let me just give you a brief sampling.
Sure.
Let's call it what it is. It's communism.
The Commie Caucus is coming to Congress.
Communism is on the ballot this November.
We're not going to turn this country into a communist experiment.
Well, you can kind of get a sense of the theme, and obviously the president has said the same thing. But by the way, just a quick definitional thing, what in your mind is the difference between socialism and communism?
I think to me, the fundamental differences, there's many.
Yeah.
One prevailing one is democracy. And I believe that democratic socialists are fundamentally pro-democracy. And we believe in the ballot box. We believe in respecting the outcomes of elections and governing democratically and ensuring that the ideas and policies that are implemented are won through popular vote and popular opinion. And so I think that's why so much of what we focus on is also making sure that we are providing for the majority of Americans, guaranteeing health care, raising wages, strengthening the right to a union. And I think that that's at its core what we're about.
Are you...
Man, when you have a politician that just says what you believe, it's just so refreshing. This is where my hot takes come in that people all over the leftist spectrum disagree with me on. But AOC is right. Communism is anti-democratic, in my opinion. In history, it's always been anti-democratic. And the word democratic is in the word democratic socialism for a reason. And in my opinion, AOC is what you call a classical democratic socialist, or a democratic socialist of what democratic socialists should be. In my opinion, who I call tankies, aka communists, they've taken over the definition of democratic socialism. And what democratic socialism should be is what Bernie Sanders and what AOC believes in: universal health care, public housing, a Green New Deal, taking on the biggest corporations, living wages, unions, co-ops for workplaces, workplace democracy. It just continues. That's what democratic socialism is and has been. People disagree with me when I say this, but social democracy is also socialism. Anything with a welfare system, anything that gives workers more control of their life and their livelihoods, is considered socialism. Medicaid is considered socialism. Social Security is considered socialism. So anything that benefits the people is considered socialism. Any social welfare system, anything involving that is socialist, in my opinion. And so people don't like her definition of democratic socialism. People don't like my definition of democratic socialism. But socialism in of itself is not a one-fits-all ideology. There's people all over, there's different types of socialism. There's people that believe, the end goal of socialism is communism, which is true. There's some people that want communism, and so to get to communism, you have socialism, and so the last step of socialism is communism. That is definitely true, but there's other aspects of the democratic socialism that Bernie and AOC believes in that we've been fighting a long time to become popular. And now you see DSA kind of moving towards the left because the left caucuses kind of control the organization right now. And so there's kind of this redefining of what democratic socialism is and combining communism. And not only does that help the right wing, but it will lose us elections, which is why you have seen Hong separate herself, why you see Bernie separating himself, now AOC a little bit here. and Will Lawrence in Michigan. And so you have campaigns, progressives separating themselves from DSA. But of course, let's continue. She continues on, so we'll continue.
Are you still a member of Democratic Socialists of America?
Of the New York City chapter.
The New York City chapter, not the national.
No.
And what's the difference?
So every DSA chapter is formed locally.
Yeah.
And so the New York City DSA chapter, those are folks that you know. It's kind of like your local union chapter.
Yeah.
And yeah.
So, because
people are mad at her for this, especially online today, because when you join your local DSA, typically you automatically become a member of National DSA. But, you don't have to go to the meetings. You don't have to be part of National DSA and do all of that. But technically speaking, you are part of National DSA, even though she doesn't want to be anything close to it. And so people are just mad at her because of how she said that. When I was in DSA, I got really pissed off at National DSA as well. So, yeah, I understand her frustration, and local is where it's at for sure.
Moment in 2024 when the national chapter took away your endorsement.
Yes.
But I was looking through the DSA program, and this is the national program. I'm sure you've seen the document. It was adopted just a few months ago. But some of the positions here: defund the Department of Defense, close overseas military bases, abolish the police and prison system, grant amnesty to all immigrants in the U.S., replace the Supreme Court and executive judiciary with a chosen by lower to Congress, abolish the Senate, public ownership of corporations and essential industries. I mean, those are some positions that you're going to be hearing a lot about this fall from Republicans.
And I think we're also going to be hearing a lot about Donald Trump's commitment to getting us into a reckless war in Iran, his collaboration with big companies to make sure that everything from groceries to rent stay sky high. And I think that people are less interested in these academic debates, and they're more interested in how we're going to bring their bills down and make sure that they can afford to see a doctor.
But do you support?
No, but I think that this is a free country. Everyone can have all sorts of beliefs and they can organize around them, and you're free to do what you like and, have conversations with your neighbors. But my job as an elected official is to guarantee healthcare in America. And that's what I'm focused on, and that's what I seek to do.
AOC just being like, no, I don't believe in everything that the National DSA believes in. But, we're a free country, and you're allowed to believe whatever you want and support those policies however you want. But I have my own policy positions that I care about, and, we're a free country. So, I love her answer. It's also affirming to me and validating to me, because there's a bunch of policies that DSA is running on now that I disagree with. I disagree with actually abolishing the Senate. However, I do agree that we need to amend the filibuster or get rid of it altogether. And then I don't agree with abolishing prisons. I don't agree with abolishing the presidency, the Supreme Court, all of that. I don't agree with. And also more positions that are listed there. But I absolutely agree with AOC that I absolutely also don't 100% agree with the full platform. And that's the thing about Democratic Socialists or progressives in general, is that we don't always agree with each other, and that's okay. And I love that AOC kind of made that the whole point, And so people are getting mad at her because it's called purity testing. If she's not pure enough, then they hate her, So, yeah, let's keep going.
First, Abdul Sayed in Michigan. You've been on his live stream, at least a few times. He's somebody who said, that America deserved 9/11. Now he backed off from that.
Yes, he's apologized.
But he said a lot of controversial things. Is he somebody that should have a role in the progressive movement going forward?
I think when we look at our elections that have happened, we have lost young people. Much hay was made about the fact that we lost young men in the last election. And many of the same consultants that are wringing their hands today were the same ones talking about how we need to go on Joe Rogan and we need to be not so, willing to engage in cancel culture. And I think that the flip-flopping on this is a tactical debate that they may be having. I think the fact of the matter is that Democrats can go on Joe Rogan, Democrats can go on Fox News, Democrats have a responsibility to build a winning coalition, and young people are engaging in mediums and conversations that we have a responsibility to attend to and be responsive to. And even right now, when we look at this insurgent wave of what is happening, oftentimes when people are doing that Monday morning quarterbacking and what demographics voted where, the big one that's being ignored is the generational tidal wave. Tsunami.
I mean, you see it in the polling. It is significant.
Millennials are not, punk kids anymore.
Yeah.
We're grown adults with mortgages and kids, and that generation is starting to be decisive at the polls, and there is anger at being ignored, sidelined, having our economic futures mortgaged by the generations that came before us on everything from the economy to climate, and we're taking the reins.
Now, here I agree with AOC, and as somebody who disagrees with Hassan on a bunch of issues, and things that he said, just because I disagree with him, I think he's a good asset for the left. We lack, like AOC talked about, and we've lost men on the left, and so I think Hassan could be a great person to bring back young men back to the Democratic Party. But also, I like that she kind of talked about, this whole cancel culture thing. Like, we used to be, called the cancel culture party, and now it's kind of being reversed where we're now open to talking to people that we may disagree with and that are considered, quote, controversial. And, this whole cancel culture about going on to Hassan's show to talk to him, whatever. And so AOC is kind of like reversing that and telling people, like, weren't we, being told by all these people not to do that and to cancel people for going on shows or whatever. And so, like, it's really refreshing, and she's kind of turning it back onto them and be like, conservatives, weren't you telling us that we're the party of cancel culture, and yet you're trying to cancel people who go on a talk show or a podcast, a podcaster, organizer, or has Hassan organized for them at a rally? Like, get a grip. So I 100% agree with her on her take on this, and you don't have to agree with Hassan 100%. You don't have to agree with anybody 100% in order to, like, see them as human and have a human connection. So that is the last clip that I am gonna be reacting to. I want to thank you so much if you listened this far into this episode. And that's it, folks. I'll talk to you guys in the next one.